How to talk about debt and deficits. Don't think of an elephant. By Stephanie Kelton. Many economists, perhaps even those who agree with us, refuse to talk about the national debt and government deficits the way we do on this blog. Instead of boldly challenging the assertion that the U.S. faces a long-run debt or deficit problem, headline progressives typically do what Jared Bernstein did in his column today. That is, they pay obligatory tribute to the balanced budget gods, thereby reinforcing the case for austerity at some point in the not-so-distant future when we will be forced to deal with this very bad thing called the government deficit. Followers of my work here and on Twitter know that I refuse to pay homage to the balanced budget gods. Instead, I prefer to shift the burden of proof onto those who contend that the U.S. faces a long-term debt or deficit problem. The first step is to establish that solvency can never be an issue for a government that spends taxes and borrows in its own non-convertible currency. The following quote from the St. Louis Federal Reserve usually does the trick, but this great confession from Alan Greenspan also helps. Quote, as the sole manufacturer of dollars, whose debt is denominated in dollars, the U.S. government can never become insolvent, that is, unable to pay its bills. In this sense, the government is not dependent on credit markets to remain operational. Moreover, there will always be a market for U.S. government debt at home because the U.S. government has the only means of creating risk-free, dollar-denominated assets. End quote. Greenspan's response to Congressman Paul Ryan sets up the correct debate. Our challenge is not whether we can afford to make the payments we have promised to seniors, veterans, and the disabled, government contractors, healthcare providers, bondholders, etc., today, tomorrow, and into the indefinite future, but whether we will be a productive enough nation to allow the government to make good on those promises without causing an inflation problem. That is the debate we should be having. Of course, there are many other points that can be made about the role of government deficit in our economy. 1. It's an important source of private sector profits. 2. It's the source of net financial assets to the non-government sector. 3. It is equal to the non-government surplus to the penny. 4. In its absence, a country that runs larger persistent trade deficits would leave its private sector with large unsustainable deficits. And so on. I make all of these arguments when I give public talks on this subject, and the response is always the same. Why didn't anyone tell us this before? The lesson? It's okay to deviate from the progressive talking points. In fact, it's better than okay. People will thank you. Want proof? Here's a typical response I received just hours ago. Subject: thank you. To Stephanie Kelton. I am a member of the blank and was so very fortunate to hear your presentation last Thursday. Thank you for your amazing presentation. I thought it was jaw-dropping and can't seem to get it out of my head. I would love to hear more from you and wonder if you would consider being a presenter for the blank Institute at blank. These are evening courses, 3 2-hour presentations spread over 3 weeks. I know you must have an insanely busy schedule, but next spring or fall I am sure would be available if you are at all interested. I could help you get connected with the blank folks if you would like. I am a retired blank and have little knowledge about economics. Last Monday, I made a presentation to a neighborhood men's group on the wealth gap in America using Joseph Stiglitz's book, Inequality in America, and Hedrick Smith's book, Who Stole the American Dream, as text. Thus, your topic was of great interest to me, as I had all this stuff in the foreground in my head. It seems to me that both the left and the right have no good long-term solutions, but what you presented may give the country a solid option for going forward. Thanks again. Note: Don't Think of an Elephant is, of course, the title of George Lakoff's brilliant book about messaging progressive values.